right, Eric, what's up, dude? You're on the East Coast. You're in Miami, which is awesome. You're another Californian that's leaving California, and maybe by the time this actually does air, you'll have found a place and you'll be a Florida resident.
Yeah, no, times are crazy. Yeah, I actually almost moved to Puerto Rico, but but I basically almost moved to the East Coast, and now it looks like it's gonna happen again. So yeah,
Let me start there. And I know this isn't the point of the conversation. We have so much of to talk about, but I've had a few people on that are Californians, and a few of them basically said like I am willing to pay the California premium essentially. Like I don't care. I just keep paying. I am curious, like, what do you think as somebody that's, I don't know how long you've been in California, but like, do you think San Francisco and some of these cities come back? And not just San Francisco, but like New York is another example. There's these mega cities that have the economies, the real estate price, everything's been based around this principle that they're the busiest cities. They have massive wealth, billionaires that live there, so they can afford to do these things and charge these prices. But COVID and what's happened this last year has totally changed the dynamic of these cities. I'm curious, somebody that lives in these areas, like, do you think they bounce back? And if they do, does it take a year, 5 years, 10 years?
yeah. So I think I don't think San Francisco or New York are gonna experience like a Detroit type of thing. I think they will rebound. I just don't think it's gonna rebound to the levels it was at before, right? Because if we look at, I was actually looking at a graph, the tech outflows from San Francisco, or just workers migrating out, it was 35%, right? So they lost 35% of people, and then I think New York was like 15 or 18% or something like that. LA actually, which is where I'm from, I'm born and raised in LA. It's actually not on the top five. But I think more than anything, this has made people realize, even though, the world you and I live in, we've realized this for years and years, right? Probably 10, 15, 20 years. But now everyone's like, oh, looks like this is a real thing. So they have the courage now to, venture out into spots like Austin, Vegas, Miami, because they realize that it's just crazy to be paying 50 to even up to 60% taxes. And then I think more than that, the policies, without getting too political here, the policies in California, it's made a lot of people realize that, hey, this might not be the place for the long term. By the way, I love California. It's got everything. It's my home. It's where I went to college. It's hard for me to say, hey, like, it might be time to go.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, as a state, at the state leadership in the government, and also like some of the cities there are as big as certain states in their own right with population, if that's been the like guiding principle for a long time for them, basically that we such a blessed state in terms of it's so the weather and the economy and everything that we can get away with like doing all these things and people won't leave. Like the elasticity there was pretty crazy. It was pretty
Hmm.
inelastic of people like saying I'm gonna leave, and this was just the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and just the floodgates opened. I'm really curious to see if anything changes, like if there's any change at all, or if they just keep doing what they're doing based on what's happening now. Like again with
Yeah.
like the shutdowns again, the restaurants. Like it seems I had a call yesterday with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about this. Like, and again, not getting political. This is like just a conversation about just data. It's like the city of LA, right? They shut down all the outdoor dining, and there was
Hmm.
two guys on Rogan's podcast last week that are two restaurateurs that own a bunch of restaurants, and they were talking about this, and they appealed. They went to court, and like the city said, well, we have all this data showing that it's dangerous and all this stuff, so we need to shut it down. And then they get to court, and they basically said, well, actually, we don't have any data. We just said that, but then they appealed it. Like they lost in court. Now they're appealing it, and I'm just like, part of me's like, why? Right? Like, I don't understand the approach at these
Yeah.
different mayors and some of these governors. Like, what are they thinking? What their goal is? Because it seems to be just like they want people to leave. Like they want to piss as many people off, at least the people that pay a lot of the taxes.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's there's a level of incompetence that we're seeing right now, right? It's and people that are coming up with these policies aren't thinking about the long term effects, right? What are the second and third order consequences if I lock down, what happens to people's mental health and all that. I think it made sense initially in the very beginning. So I'm trying to be very practical here, right? When we didn't know much about the virus, and things were just kind of up in the air. Yes, it does make sense to lock down until we find out more information. Now we know a lot, and so does it make sense to do another lockdown where we're going to see the ripple effect of the economy? Like there's going to be hell to pay in the next, I think, 12 to 18 months, right? So I think that the key takeaway here is, if you want to have control, you kind of vote with your feet, and you make your decisions, right? Because I can tell you, me coming from California, completely locked down right now. I'm in Miami, and it's on the way on the other side, right? So it maybe California's too locked down. In Miami, it is too lax, right? You got people it's a straight up like, it's like, is there even a virus? Is there even a pandemic going on? Because people are straight up like packing things and partying. So
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, what'll be fascinating coming out of this, and especially as like marketers ourselves, right? We're data people, and we like to like A/B test things, right? And this is probably what's been happening the last year is the single greatest A/B test in history, right? Basically, we just said every state do your own thing, and we'll see where the chips fall in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when we look back and there's case studies and academic papers written about, California did this, Florida did this, here's what the outcome was. So next time there's a pandemic or there's some big issue, we'll have some data to work off of, and people maybe will make more rational, logical decisions rather than emotional decisions.
You know what I'll say? I mean, I don't think enough people look at the data, right? Because if you look at how the Asian countries handle it, or even Australia or New Zealand, right? So let's use Singapore, or Taiwan. Let's use God, where else? Hong Kong as an example too. They did pretty well with this because, right out the gate, people complied, and then so they didn't have to, deal with the after effects of not complying. And then so now, we have this cluster going on, right, where it's just a giant mess. Whereas they've moved on and their life is back to normal. Their lives are back to normal. So it's just, at the end of the day, you can present as much data as possible. I think most people, which is why they're most people, are not going to look at it. So you have to take control once you have the data and decide what you want to do. Vote with your feet.
Yeah. So it'll be fascinating. I think it's just, again, as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, watching this whole thing happen has been, I don't want to use the word like fascinating or something like that because it makes it seem like it's not negative, right? It's awful watching it happen, but it's as a thought experiment, a social experiment, like the scale of it, seeing how human beings react to different situations and scenarios and fear, especially like fear, right? It's pretty crazy. Like if you think about a year ago, if you had asked like the average person on the street, hey, if the federal government or your state government told you tomorrow that you're going to need to stop working, you're going to need to go into your home and you need to stay there for 2 months, and then you come out and then maybe a few months later we'll tell you back in, all stuff, like I guarantee you 99% of people would say there's no way in hell I would do that, right? But it is crazy how fast that changed. People get afraid, people get scared, people start every media story, every news story, every piece of content they see is stoking this little fire, and fear is a powerful motivator. These strong emotions can cause people to change their behavior, and it's hard to change behavior. Once you change it, then it's hard to change it back. So that's what's gonna be interesting, is seeing things like working from home, like all these trends that have happened that should have taken a decade or more, like the shift to e-com, where more people are buying things online, have been forced to adopt them out of necessity. And now they've been doing it for a while, whether it's Uber Eats, whether it's grocery delivery, whether it's just buying online, and that's, I think, gonna stick. Like I think for a lot of people, some people will go back, right? Maybe they'll go back to doing things the old way, but most people are just, hey, I've been doing it now for several months. It's now routine and habit for me, and I'm gonna keep doing it now going forward.
Right. Yep, 100%.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. I want to get move off the politics thing and into another area that I'm curious to get your thoughts on. I just sat down with a few guys yesterday. We did a webinar and a live stream about this, basically about the Facebook Apple situation. And I know you put out a lot of great content around organic traffic and things that are off paid, right? Just smart marketing strategies. And so I wanted to, I thought it'd be interesting to talk to you because you're not just like a paid traffic. I kind of live in this bubble, right, where it's like we talk to a lot of paid people and everyone's freaking out about it. I'm curious. and I'm not necessarily freaking out about it. I have my own opinion, and this is kind of what I talked about yesterday. But to get your thoughts at a macro level, like just these big tech companies, right? Like kind of the gatekeepers like Apple and Amazon versus like you have Facebook and companies that are kind of dependent now on these platforms fighting, and then also just the impact in general on businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, they've brought a net positive to the world. I think, obviously when things become too powerful, or when these companies become too powerful, the government's going to pay attention, right? I think for us, as business owners or people looking to, just what does the future look like, right? I think the key thing is, everyone talks about, hey, you have to build an audience. We're doing a podcast right now. People talk about the importance of an email list. They talk about the importance of, maybe doing SMS marketing or any of that. I think it's we're largely renting on these platforms. So how do you own? So you look at it like from a real estate perspective, right? Like maybe in some cases it makes sense to rent, but in a lot of cases it makes sense to own, right? If you want to, have something for the long term. And so looking at it from a long-term investment standpoint, how can you maximize what you're doing on these platforms before something happens, right? Before they get split up by the government or whatever crazy stuff goes on, right? Amazon might get split up, Google might get split up, who knows? So I think we have to just be aware of what's going on, and look, in a blink of an eye, you can get your website banned by Google. So there goes your SEO traffic. You get banned on Snap. That's gone too. So like, what do you do, right? So I think it's time to start planting seeds now. So in the next 12 to 18 months or so, you're going to be in a good spot, right? And probably even more important than that is how do you build, whether you want to build a company brand or a personal brand, that's going to stay with you for the long term, right? Because people are going to, they're going to find ways to come back to you even if you get banned on all these platforms. So I think it's just having a general long-term outlook on it. And I think, I just came from a Clubhouse, and the title of the Clubhouse was it was how to build a $1 million marketing funnel. And they're all talking about the same shit,
Yep.
right? So they're all talking about marketing funnels. They're all talking about running Facebook ads. They're all running it to their info. Like everyone's doing the same thing, right? How are you going to diversify? How are you going to make your business how are you going to make your business stand out? I think that's the key question. And people, I think, especially in this internet marketing world, people are focused on short-term profits. Whereas you have people with an investment mindset that look at the long term, and they're willing to continue to defer profits. And they understand that 10, 20 years out the road, they're going to be doing a lot better than short-term focused people.
100%. Let's put a pin in that Clubhouse thing because I want to circle back to that because I have some thoughts and,
Yeah.
and questions there. But to stay on this thread, I think it's interesting. I don't know if you've heard. There's a brand called Nugget that makes couches for kids that just blew up this year.
No.
So basically, it's called Nugget Couch, and essentially it was started by two dudes, and they wanted to make like a better futon, and so they made like a modular futon, and then they brought on their first employee, and I think she was like a grade school teacher or a kindergarten teacher or something like that. And she said, this is actually this would be way cooler for kids. You can make this this is a modular couch for kids. They can build forts and stuff with the pieces. So they repositioned the brand, and that's essentially what it is. It's essentially 5 blocks that kids can use to build forts. They can make all the shapes, all that stuff. And they sold 150,000 units this year. And it's like a $400, $500 thing. It's super expensive. They've been in stock, maybe on the site, 5 or 7 times throughout the year. They can actually put it up for sale, and they get 200,000 visitors coming to the site instantly with a drop. It's supreme for kids. And next year they'll probably do 750,000 units, about $150 million. They don't run ads.
Wow.
And they don't worry about paid traffic. They don't worry about funnels. They don't worry about these things. And as when we used to do a lot more agency stuff, we would always get these clients coming in that we look at their ad accounts and they'd be just terrible. They had no idea what they were doing, but they were making money because they had these amazing brands and their products were great and their brand was great.
The offer was so good.
The offer was so good that the ads could suck. The technical part of the ads could suck, and they could still make money. And I think people get lost in that in our industry. I don't know about you, but I'd imagine most people you talk to in our industry, they think marketing first. They think ads first, traffic first.
Yeah.
And then they figure out okay, well, my ads don't work. Now I got to think about, maybe my offer is not great. Maybe my landing page isn't great. Maybe my back end's not great. They work the wrong direction. Instead of saying, let me build a brand, let me build a really cool product that people love and build a cult-like following, and then plug in marketing. If you do it that way, it becomes so much easier. And then things like iOS 14, ATT, these big issues don't really impact you as much.
Right. No, 100%. And by the way, I had a conversation last week with Billy Jean, he's a well-known marketer,
Yep.
and love him or hate him, he actually brought up a good point. I was like, hey, share something that's been working really well for you. He's like, forget it, sharing about tactics. It's like, at the end of the day, it's how good your offer is, right? And when you think about, let's use Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels as an example. What he does is he's got ClickFunnels as software, but he keeps coming up with different offers all the time. He keeps bundling things, he keeps repositioning it, and that's kind of that's not. I'm not talking about it from a macro business level, but even the offer you have, if it's good enough from a marketing standpoint, that's going to do a lot better when you're running ads, right? And then obviously, I think Nugget's probably the best example because you just have a product and that just straight up works. So.
Yeah, it's amazing when you see these brands like Supreme and Nugget, and even just like luxury brands like Louis Vuitton and these different brands. Like, go to their Facebook page right now and go to their paid transparency and look at the ads they're running. Like, most are not running any ads, and if they are, they're really basic ads.
Yep.
These companies have focused first on just like, let's have incredible products. Let's have really great drops. Let's build hype. Let's build excitement around things, and it's frustrating sometimes because I see it every week when I do trainings with our group. Like, I get the same kind of questions every single week. Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? My ads suck. My ads aren't working. And I say, well, share what's the offer. Share the landing page. Share these things. And you go to it, and it's just like, it's blah. It's great. It's like, what's unique about this? What's special about this?
Yep.
You're selling the same thing that everyone else is selling, and it's frustrating because sometimes you feel like you're hitting people over the head with the same thing every time. Like, you're telling them the same thing, but people don't want to listen because it's a lot harder, right? Playing the long game and investing in the future and putting work in to build a brand and all that stuff takes a lot more work and a lot more patience and a lot more sacrifice, because you got to, be willing to pay yourself less, take less money out, build a team, right? Hire people, invest in inventory. Like, there's a lot more stuff that goes into it than just a quick funnel that you can throw up.
I think what's important is, from the internet marketing world, people and I was just talking about this in a car earlier with my buddy. It's like people are so focused on making money that it's all short term. And so what happens is, we talk about the ideal team player, which I got from this book called The Ideal Team Player. And you have to be humble, hungry, and smart. And what I find with a lot of internet marketers that I meet is the humility is really lacking. They might be hungry and smart, but not humble, and then also not long-term focused. But so there's that, right? I think internet marketers might be really good at understanding funnels and a lot of optimization type stuff, right? Very granular stuff. But when you look at the world of tech, they might not know as much, but they understand what it means to talk to the customers and build an amazing product. So my point here is that when you, instead of thinking it's tech versus internet marketers, why don't you take some elements that you like that really make sense from tech, learn, right? There's a lot of great books out there. And if you're in the world of tech, go learn from internet marketers and combine the two, and then you're going to make magic. Coming back to Clubhouse for a second. So in that room, I saw a lot of people that look, they've achieved success. They've built, let's say, usually what happens in info, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is typically you'll build if you have a really good business, you'll build up to 8 figures or so, but then you reach a capping point, right? You can't go beyond that. And I find it's the same people and they're doing the same thing, right? And so talking about the concept of leveling up, I think that's certainly fine to do that. But I also interact with a lot of people that have gone beyond, right? Now they're working on acquiring other businesses, they're hiring CEOs and putting things in place. They've leveled up past that. And you don't necessarily have to. By the way, if you're really happy with that 7 to 8 figure business, that's great. I think what I generally try to not associate myself with those types of people. Reason is because it's a lot of the types of conversations that are going on. I might be going on a tangent here, but there's a lot of jealousy, there's a lot of envy and that type of stuff. When you start to go beyond that, when you start to think about team culture, all that type of stuff, that's long-term thinking. And the people you talk to, when you start to talk about that stuff, introductions are made. You talk about ideas, you're sharing stuff, right? And you already know everyone around you is making a good amount of money. That's not what it's all about. It's about, hey, what can I learn from this person? What are they doing, right? And then you want to hang out with these people more. It's a very different type of mindset. And I used to think mindset was a bunch of baloney, right? People are like, yeah, you got to get your mindset right. You got to get your mind right. And I'm like, oh man, now I'm into my 30s. I'm like, yeah, mindset's a pretty big deal because you have to keep shifting. Every 5 years, you're a brand new person. So
Yeah, 100%. It's not a I mean, you can. The beauty of this show is that you can, if you want to talk about whatever you want to talk about for 30 minutes, go on a tangent, go for it, man. Whatever, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But it is true. I mean, that's why, frankly, we stopped doing info. Like, we're giving away all of our courses for free now.
Yeah.
And we have some legacy stuff that we do, but it was for that very reason, which is we started launching our own internal brands and building our own e-com properties, our own business, like our own companies, our own physical product business, essentially. And we're making so much more money doing this plus, and then that wasn't the big thing, the money thing, but it was, but we're building an asset. Like, this is something that we could sell this, right? There's an exit strategy here. There's an expansion strategy here. And there's the ability to grow past 10, 20 million a year, which you're right. I think it's very, very difficult. There's a few people that have been able to go past, the 10 million a year mark in info. And it's very, very, very rare. And those people are just exceptionally good at what they do and got in early and had, they kind of have walls up now. But even then you have to really, and again, this is not a knock on anybody, because a lot of those guys that do it, I love, and they're great friends of mine, but you have to, and they really love what they do. You have to genuinely love teaching, educating and stuff like that, which is great. But a lot of people, I think, get into it because they want to make money. And they don't really love it. And then what happens? You get 2-3 years in, and you're doing a few million a year, and you're like, this is getting boring. It's exhausting. I got to put out so much content. I got to do all this stuff, but there's no path out. It's like, okay, basically I can either just shut it down, or I can keep doing it. Nobody's going to buy it, because if you sell it, you're the product, right? So you got to stay on and keep doing it. The only opportunity is to do something like Masterclass, where it's or like PragerU's doing, or Daily Wire, these different companies where they're doing a roll up of influencers, and it's a company's bigger than any one brand, any one influencer. So they can, Masterclass could sell, right? Because it doesn't matter, because they have 100 plus people that have created courses on the platform. So they could sell the company for $500 million, $1 billion. I'm sure they will one day sell for probably, a few $1 billion. But individual sole prop, like one person, you're the brand, you're the company, getting out of that is really tricky.
Yeah. And just to share another example, I think you're exactly right. There's no enterprise value if it's just, you as a person. But what I would say is, well, in addition, Lambda School, taking a look at them, they have this income share agreement thing going on where, they'll take a percentage of your income for the first 2 years. I actually was talking to the CEO maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was like, look, you raised, $133, $140 million. When are you actually going to start to realize the gains on, all these students coming through? And he's like, look, it's probably going to be 4 to 5 years, if not more. And so you tell that to most people, to your point earlier, they're not down to do that. They're not down to have this long-term thinking type of thing. This is an extreme example, but I do think that model ends up working out. So we'll see.
So I'm not really familiar with that. So are you talking about the idea of there's a few companies that will pay off student loan debt, or basically you're investing in a person or a kid coming out of school and then getting a percent of their income for a set period of time?
Exactly. So what it's called an income share agreement. So with Lambda School, you can either pay them 20 grand, or you sign an agreement, and then basically they'll take 15% of your income with a cap of 30 grand in the first 2 years. And if you don't find a job within 5 years after going through Lambda School, you don't pay anything. The agreement's invalid. And so you have this, talking about long term right now. When we start to have to pay the piper here for all the money that we're printing, you're going to have a lot of people that need to reskill. And so this is a big opportunity for people to, what they do is they train people up on coding, right? But I think a lot of this model is going to become more popular once they prove it out. So I still think it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, I love the idea of going beyond that, just staking people, investing in people. We look at even our performance marketing division, right? Instead of us continue to hire more media buyers and W-2 them, bring them on 401k and health insurance stuff, there's a lot of talented media buyers out there who might want to do performance stuff, but they don't have the capital, or they want to risk the capital to run different offers, right? So it's, hey, we'll stake you and we'll take a chunk of the returns. I'm waiting for somebody to do this eventually, create some type of fund essentially that allows investors to come in and basically put money into kind of pools of media buyers that are running certain offers and fund that. Because again, I think there's a lot of people out there that have skills and talent or need to learn skills and talent, but don't have capital. And there's a lot of people that have capital, but don't have necessarily the skills to fully kind of realize the value of that capital.
Isn't Zach Johnson from Trap?
So Funnel Dash. So yeah, so what they're doing, and I was excited when we were talking to them because they're doing stuff in the space. They're not doing that for other reasons. So they decided to go the debt route instead of the equity route. So essentially what they do is they have like an ad capital program where, and we're in talks with them to do something for Unicorn, where we can essentially white label their kind of back office, their infrastructure, and have like a Unicorn credit card, an ad card. And so you can come in, you can go through our website, the application, but they're basically doing the credit check. They're doing all that stuff through their point of contact. They're taking the risk. And then we're able to offer, a line of credit essentially to media buyers and marketers. And they have bigger programs that are kind of like lines of credit versus just a credit card. But yeah, they went the debt route instead of the equity route. There's a whole bunch of reasons why they decided to do that. But yeah, it's an interesting market. I think at the end of the day, like Wall Street's always looking for like ways to package assets, right? To be able to create things to sell.
New offers all the time. I mean, there's down here in Miami, there's pipe.com, which they allow you to kind of monetize the monthly recurring revenue that you got going on instead of giving up more equity or, paying like crazy interest. So, I think that's certainly a valid model. I think it should be, I think, whoever does it, hopefully they do it well, and I think it'll take off. So hopefully it's you guys.
We'll see. It's been something I've thought about for a few years. I keep waiting for somebody to do it just because I think it's a cool idea. And for us, we just haven't had the focus. But that's why I love the idea of investing. Right? It's like the ability to. There's only so much stuff that you can do yourself. Right? You only have so much time and capacity and even knowledge. But like ideas, and there's so many smart people out there that just lack resource. They lack connections. They lack capital. And for us and for you, people that just have been in the industry for a while and have built these massive connections and Rolodexes and have capital, like you can empower so many people. Like that's what gets me excited, at least nowadays, is thinking kind of bigger picture of, hey, like, can I change the world individually? Probably not. But what I could do is leverage things I have to stake a lot of other people who, maybe one of them becomes a Musk or somebody that goes to space. Like there's so much cool, like that stuff just gets me excited. I don't know about you. Like, I guess the question is like, what gets you excited, right? We should probably even started with that.
Yeah, I think so. There's this concept called the wealth ladder from ConvertKit CEO Nathan Barry, and I really like it because, it starts with, a career. Maybe you have to start off with a job first, and then you start doing freelancing, and then maybe you start an agency, or maybe you start a drop shipping business, and then you do e-commerce, right? You start to hold inventory. But the whole idea here is you're continuing to get stronger and stronger. You're leveling up in your career, and then what you do is, oh, okay, now you have some excess capital. Maybe you go and invest in other businesses, or you go buy other businesses, and then then you start to work above the business, and then you are just now the person that looks for deals, and you're the person that might hop in and help with strategy stuff. But you're largely looking for deals and doing the highest leverage activities. And I actually had a conversation with a guy who's well known in the Bitcoin world, Anthony Pompliano, and I was like, what do you do with your time? He's like, dude, this is like these conversations we're having right now. These are one of the highest leverage things that I can do because I'm building my audience, but I'm also talking to amazing people, and that also helps me get deal flow for my investment. So I think it's putting the money to work and understanding that once you get to a certain point, you don't need to keep coming up with new new funnels and things like that. I think it's time to move on to the next thing if you want to get to the next thing. So
yeah, it becomes a lot easier to, and the irony is that it becomes easier to generate wealth and income when you start to acquire more income producing properties, right? Like that's the kind of the bitter irony of just our society and the way our economy is structured is that like the people that are struggling the most don't have, they one, don't have the capital, and when they do have the capital, they don't spend it appropriately, and they don't invest it. They don't put it in the market. They even start.
Look at the lottery tickets.
I see it every day when I go to coffee in the morning. I see it, almost every day. The same people buying scratch offs and spending tons of money. But yeah, but then you see, the Buffetts and the wealthy people that they're looking for opportunities. When there's the market tanks, they're buying. Yeah. They're coming in strong. When the market's at the peak, they're selling, and then they're holding cash and getting ready when things pull back. And it's frustrating to watch from the outside sometimes.
I think so. I mean, there's a big education opportunity and reskilling opportunity. But if you look at how Warren Buffett as an example, how he behaves. He's not super flashy. He still lives in the same house, right? And if you think about how the reason why the rich get richer is because we're not incentivized to, take profits necessarily. We're incentivized to reinvest it because we don't, then our tax liability is lower, right? You just think about all the things that are going on. And I think, yeah, people definitely need, people often talk about, oh, equal outcome, right? I think you have, not getting into politics, but equal outcome. And the reality is, when we try to teach people and what we're doing right now, these conversations, we're trying to create equal opportunity, right? You
Yeah.
give people same starting line, right? Finish line might be different, and that's all you can ask for, I think. As that's all you can do, right?
Yeah.
Their effort is under their control. So
Yeah, that's a big topic. Like, I would love to maybe we jam a little later on another call about that. But that's a huge one. It's the distinction of like a quality of outcome versus a quality of opportunity, right? Like,
yep.
it's a very it's nuanced, but it's a big distinction, right? Like, a quality of outcome is not a good thing. Like, trying to make guarantee and fix that everyone gets the same outcome, it's a terrible model. However,
we're disincentivized to compete. So.
Exactly. Yeah, you lose all incentive there. You lose all this great innovations that we've had over time, and things look pretty bleak. But you have, even just like with the COVID vaccine, like if there was no incentive, right? If everyone was just outcome was the same, we would not have a vaccine in less than a year, right? There would have been no incentive for these big biotech companies to invest massive sums of cash to do this. They did it because they knew when they got a vaccine, Pfizer and Moderna, they're going to get massive checks, right? They're going to make a ton of money. Their stock's going through the roof. They're doing buybacks. Their executives are getting big paydays. Fortunately and unfortunately, everyone would say it like that.
Yeah.
Capitalism can drive, even if it's financial, it's still the outcome of people being greedy can be good things, right?
I mean, I don't think either of us are saying that capitalism doesn't have flaws, but it seems to be the model that has, worked over the other types of models. So, hopefully someone finds a better way, in the next couple of years. Who knows?
Yeah, it's not perfect, right? I think that's the thing. There's no perfect system out there. Everything has flaws. Everything's going to have bad actors, bad people, good people. But I think, like you said, the best thing people can do, best thing entrepreneurs like us can do is to try to give everyone the same opportunity to at least compete. Right, give everyone the chance to play the game, and some people are going to win that game, some people are going to lose that game. But as long as everyone has the chance to play that game, and the rules for the game are the same for this person and this person, this person, like that seems like a pretty great place to be and live and operate in, right? Compared to anywhere else you can live in the world, and any other time you could be alive. I want So I want to ask you two like kind of fast questions just to get your thoughts on this, and then I want to dive in and talk about the book because I'm excited about it. I'm just looking at the page. So we talked about Clubhouse a little bit, and I've seen you in there, and when in some of the rooms and stuff. I've been in like twice or three times, just because I also have a newborn and like trying to work and the funny thing is when I've hopped in there the few times, like I've literally seen the same like people are living in there. Like the time and app has got to be astronomical in there.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts just in general are about the app itself, whether you think it has legs, whether you think it's worth actually people like getting in and building a following in it.
I think so. So I forgot where I saw this graph, but when you compare it with like Twitter or Facebook, when you look at the weekly time spent in the app, on average, it's about 45 minutes or something like that. And then the other social apps, it's lower, right? Or maybe it's the time you spend each time you log in. I think it's actually that, which is extremely high. So I think it's here to stay. And by the way, Twitter has started something called Twitter Spaces, which looks exactly like Clubhouse. But it's funny because everyone's like audio is the big thing now, right? It's a couple of years ago, it's video. But I do agree. It's a lot easier to just hop in and have a conversation. And I was in a room. There's a best-selling author in there, and I looked at his Twitter. It's like 20,000 followers. On Clubhouse, he's got like 150,000, right? And then there's a couple other people. I think the other day, I just used Billie Jean as an example. He started with 100 followers, and then now he like in the span of a day, he's at 2,500 now. It's growing exponentially, and I think it's funny. You have all the internet marketers that are actually optimizing. I'm seeing exactly what they're doing right now versus the other like organic rooms. I'm happy to share kind of my thoughts on that, but I do think if you want to build an audience right now, just if you think about Charlie D'Amelio with TikTok, got up to 100 million, and then I think Instagram she's got like 33 million, but she's built a business around that. I think you are going to see some Clubhouse stars. And the conversations, there's some that are really high quality, and then there's some that are not so low quality. Like I joined the vaccine conversation this morning, and it was just people talking over each other, debating. It was just crazy shit. So yeah, I think it's here to stay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an amazing format. I feel bad because I've introduced some people like Rich, so Rich Efron. I was talking to him literally a week ago. I texted him because we talk pretty frequently. I was like, "Hey, dude, you want to hop on and do like a Clubhouse?" And he's like, "What's Clubhouse?" And I was like, "I'll shoot you an invite." and we hopped in. This is like the day before Christmas Eve. Hopped on. It was like the first time I did it, and it was just me and him. I was like, let's just chat. So I hopped on. But I made it public and open, and then it ended up getting there was like maybe 200 people in the room, and now he's hooked. Now he's like posting about it.
Whoa.
He's obsessed with it. He's loving it. And
How long were you guys chatting for before it built up to 200?
it was like probably only an hour and a half, because what is cool about it, and what I as a marketer I appreciate, is you can see the effect of like word of mouth and virality in real time, because you bring on people. So like Sean Vossler came on, and Sean had a bunch of people, and he's like, let me ping some people. And then it's this ripple effect. And this is what's happening in a lot of these rooms, is you're getting like Ty Lopez's room the other day, right? Like
Yeah.
you looked at, when I was on my home feed and I saw who was in it, it's like everybody in it, not even the speakers, was all big names, it was all heavy hitters. And so you have all those people that all have massive followings. And so it's this amazing instant like word of mouth. People are pinging people into rooms, and then they're pinging people, and then there's a cross following happening. I think the only thing I have kind of against it at this point is I do feel like I feel like people are like really growth hacking it hard, which I respect and stuff, but it's like I also appreciate people that just are using it because they think it's really cool and fun, and that's like their primary outcome, is like, let's just do fun, cool stuff on here, and not like, how can I game it and leverage it to make grow my following as much as possible. And the other thing is just repetitiveness, right? Like it's every time I open it, it's basically the same few rooms, the same topics, like how to make $1 million, how to become a millionaire, how to make $1 million. And it's the same people doing the rooms, and they're saying the exact same thing because they can get away with it, because it's new people every time and it's not recorded. So it's basically like fresh content to the people listening every time. That is a little boring. I'm sure that'll change. I'm sure there'll be a more diverse content. Like they did the Lion King on there last week, which was really cool. Like that stuff's really awesome.
Yeah.
That stuff's really cool.
Yeah, and I think they're still very early stage. They just raised that $16 million from Andreessen Horowitz. And I think, yes, we're kind of saying the same thing. We're seeing, you mentioned growth hacking. I said the same marketers you're seeing. And by the way, but they've quickly built up big audiences. And I think I do agree. I think the problem is you and I follow these people, and naturally they're going to just use those topics over and over. So we might be biased.
Oh yeah, we're definitely biased in terms of the type of content that we see. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So we have a few more minutes left. Let's talk about the book. So first thing I want to ask you though is just like, writing a book, what drives you to do that? Because I know it's a pretty exhausting process, like doing the whole thing. It's a labor of love, right? And thinking big picture. So for you, like, what was the kind of driving factor of deciding, like, I need to write a book, and like this is what I'm gonna write a book about?
Yeah. By the way, it's been a 5-year journey, so it wasn't like I wrote it very quickly. So I wrote it myself. By the way, probably next time I'll use like a co-writer or a ghostwriter. But the reason I decided to do the book is because me growing up, I did esports before it became a thing, and like when I look at business right now, to me, it's the ultimate game, right? It's a never-ending game. By the way, you talked about playing the game and all that, right? And I'm just like, wow, you know what? Because I always thought to myself growing up, I'm like, man, look, I'm good at games. If I could ever just do something in real life that feels like a game where I'm excited every morning, I'll be set. And that's real life right now. Like if I get bored with something, I might go do a podcast. I might go work on something else. You can build teams around you. You're adding more value to the world. You're just getting stronger and stronger. And ideally, it's you play this game that never ends, right? So it's not like I want to make $1 billion at the end of it. It's just I'm just gonna keep playing until I die. I'm just gonna have fun the whole time because that's exactly what life is. And so the subtitle is How to Master the Game of Life. And the reason I decided to do a book, I was asked this question, like, books so traditional. Like, look, I'll tell you what, I have, look, I still read physical books, right? The Nordic theory of everything, right? So I think there's an opportunity to help these people. You have 3 billion people in the world that have played games before, and if you can even affect a small chunk of them, great. But if it does really well, man, that's a brand new audience that I can serve and help out, right? So I don't have I didn't write the book saying, oh, I'm going to come up with this funnel and I'm going to sell these courses, whatever. I'm going to put the audience together first, because I have an audience first mindset, and then figure out what do they need exactly, and then put that together. But first, the book's got to be successful. So we'll see how that goes.
So just from, you said audience first. So who is the audience for the book?
Yeah. So it's really anybody that's let's call it 10 years old to 35 years old, maybe even up to 40, where they haven't realized that gaming actually creates leaders, right? This is also for the parents too, by the way, because the parents actually think gaming is a waste of time. Where, look, if you let your kids play sports, you don't want to let them overdo it, but you realize the benefits of sports. There's physical benefit too. In gaming, you understand the power of resilience, teamwork, collaboration, all that type of stuff, right? You get that from gaming too, and then you apply that to the world of real life, and then eventually, if you want to do business, you can do that. Same thing with sports. So I think there's a misconception right now. Earlier we talked about the power of reframing your mindset, and this book is largely a reframe. So, someone once complained like, oh, the book should be called Level Up, not Leveling Up. Well, level up means you're just getting to the next level. How about leveling up? It never ends. So.
Yeah, it's true. I think at the end of the day, that's the interesting thing about life, right? Is that there's no point that you hit where it's like, okay, we've accomplished everything. Like if that was the case, like people like Jeff Bezos wouldn't exist, right? Because there's no need to have that much money. You look at like Mackenzie Bezos, like. I mean, I think she changed her last name now, but like she's trying to give away her money. She can't give away her money fast enough. Like that's how much money they have and how much just she gives away tens of billions of dollars, and Amazon stock goes up another $100 billion. So she makes she's made money, and so it's got to be something bigger than just money. There's no like finite goal in life. So I do like that concept, that nuance of making it leveling up instead of just level up. So it's a continuation.
Let's use Elon as an example, right? So Jeff Bezos is a perfect example. He has a rocket company just like Elon does.
Yep.
But when Elon said, he made $180 million from his PayPal, acquisition, and he basically bet 110 million on SpaceX, I believe, and 70 went to Tesla, or maybe the other way around. But you don't have to do that. But the whole idea here is I'm all in. I'm going to keep playing, and if I fail, you know what? I have the skills to rebuild. So let's just keep playing the game.
Yeah, and the cool thing too is that it's if you do it right, you don't kind of just like gaming, right? It's like you're not starting back at zero. You're not starting the game all over. You might start the level over, but you've built up these floors that are now new starting points. And so I know for even like me, I'm like, if it today, I lost everything. If today the companies that I have went out of business and everything went to shit, right? I know that like I can pick up my phone and I know that anybody that has influence in our industry, anybody that like I could think that I could use for help, I could call and say, hey, like I need some help. I need some assistance, right? Like what can we do together? Like there's a network that I've built up by providing value and building trust that gives me that floor and that comfort of knowing, hey, I can take risks because even if I fail, I'm not going back to where I started, right? I may take a few steps back, but I'm not going 100 steps back.
Yeah, you're basically locked into like maybe you instead of starting at level 1, you the lowest you can fall is maybe like level 15 or something, right? So it's you kind of grandfather or like lock some spots in. So
100%. Is there any kind of teasers from the book or areas? I know we got a few more minutes, and then obviously tell people where they can grab the book. We'll drop the links and all that good stuff in there. But like key takeaways, interesting things from the book that like you were most excited to write about, you're most excited for people to kind of take out of it when they pick up a copy?
Yeah, I'll pick one. I mean, the whole book's about acquiring power-ups through your life, and we can talk about relationships. We can talk about, I don't know, even the health power-up or meditation, whatever, right? One that sticks out to me is ethically stealing, right? So great artists steal, right? And so I think people have a negative, just your mind reacts negatively. Oh, that's not very original. It's copied, right? But when you think about Steve Jobs, what did he say? Everything in life is a remix. And so I remember when I was playing for a championship, when I was playing in a tournament, I was playing this game called EverQuest, and I got demolished in preliminaries. But then I saw this one person, and I just copied what she was doing, and then I beat everyone, including her. And that's just me kind of tweaking it, right? So that's one example from gaming. And then I use anecdotes from real life. So let's use Apple again. So when they go into Xerox, they see the mouse, they see the the GUIs, right? They just copy everything, and they just make it better, right? And so I don't think I don't think there's a need to try to always come up with something original, right? And often some of my best friends, they're amazing entrepreneurs, right? Doing, could be 8 figures, 9 figures, whatever. And they're like, yeah, I just look at who's doing something interesting and I copy, right? Look at Facebook, right? Let's take the stories. And then LinkedIn's like, I'm in too. Let's do the stories on LinkedIn. And so it's just like, it's fine. It's as long as you're not blatantly stealing something and hurting people physically, then I think it's good to draw inspiration from everywhere. So that's one example.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a great takeaway and a great place to kind of wrap things up, because it is true. I mean, there's only so many movies that can be made, like so many only songs, like art, like everything. There's only so many unique ways things can be tweaked and or just totally novel concepts, right? And it's great. There every now and then there's somebody that truly revolutionizes and comes in and just brand new industry, brand new products, never been done before, never been thought before. And those are, 1 in a billion people that are able to think like that. Like, Charles Darwin, like people like that, just, that come in and just, they look at something and they see something nobody else has seen in the history of humanity.
Let's just use this as an example, or even SpaceX, right? So this is an iteration of the BlackBerry and all these other phones, right? So, and by the way, when you think about SpaceX, like, yes, it's an iteration. You have rockets, right? So he had to build on that base, first principles, and then he had to come up with concepts on how to send the rockets back. That's the new thing, right? So that in itself, like, he did copy in a sense. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, rocket travel is not new. Reusability of rockets, like you said, is new. So you got to take something that is, that's being done, but figure out how can I make it unique? How can I make it different? And that's, Airbnb, Uber, all these companies took things that were existing, like taxis and stuff, but like, let me make it better. Airbnb, hotels, like, but let me make it better, right? You change certain aspects of it, and those tweaks can be worth $100 billion, right? If done correctly and in the right markets.
By the way, that's the final thing I'll add. So we just talked about earlier, like, I think marketers can think bigger. Instead of thinking about the little tweaks around your ads, think about tweaks around the offer, or even bigger than which the offer could be a rocket or it could be a phone, right? So
yeah, I love that. Thinking about tweak small things, but on bigger concepts. I think that can make a much bigger difference. So I know I'm sure we'll have all the information by the time people are watching this. When you're watching this right now, we'll have links in here and all that good stuff to go check out the book. We're going to make sure we're recording this earlier in the year. We're recording this in 2020, but by the time this comes out, it'll be 2021 and the book will be out, which is very exciting. Is there a place to go? Just like, what's the site, just to kind of list it out, and then also best place for people that want to learn more about you, follow. I know you do some great YouTube content. You put out a lot of great content. So where can people go to check out more?
Yeah, they can go to levelingup.com. And if you want to, just reach out to me. You can be on Instagram or Twitter. It's at Eric OSIU. Those are probably the best places to start.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your stay in Miami and find some cool places to stay. Maybe you'll be on the East Coast. We'll be closer together. We can meet up and do one of these in person soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Talk soon. We'll see everyone next week. Thanks, guys.